Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be recapping again. Episode 4 came out last night, or streamed last night, and yeah, it was a slower episode, but after the events that transpired in the last 5 or 15 minutes of, Critical Role's third episode, a slower one was needed, in my opinion. After a death of a character, it's kind of important to take back, take a step back, and let that death kind of sink in. And I think that was done really well. But I think I'm going to start with recap more than anything else. And, first thing that happens is Imogen wakes up, and I think she, by proxy, woke up Laudna. They end up looking for Bertrand Bell, and they go back to the Fire by Spire or tavern. Too many taverns. I'm gonna forget sometimes. They go looking for him there. They find Orem, Fern, and Dorian first. The five of them go looking, and after a bit of a search, they find his body, where they find him with 6 stab wounds. Now, I might be remembering incorrectly, which is very plausible. But I feel like Bertrand only got stabbed 3 times in the session we all watched, right? In session 3. So, to me, that means this dwarf stabbed him 3 more times after. Just to make sure he was dead. Which is vicious. Sometimes they would leave him dead just to be like, ha, you're screwed. But this guy, this villain, seems a little bit more calculated than that. And obviously the death was set up by Matt and Travis. And Matt even had to tweet about it. This is the second time he's had to tweet about behind the scenes stuff for this campaign, which makes me a little mad. Yeah, it just does. I don't feel like he should have to explain himself after every session. But anyway, he explained that Travis came to him with this idea of Bertrand potentially dying, or not potentially dying, of him setting up this whole thing with him to get the story going, or vice versa. Matt went to him with the idea or something, but they agreed to it, and then Travis didn't know when it was going to happen. That's what Matt said. Now, if you go back and watch episode 3, it makes me feel like Travis was actively seeking out Bertrand's death by leaving by himself and going out into a dangerous area with no one after a big skirmish like that. It makes me think Travis either A, was done with Bertrand, or felt ready that this was the moment, and he was like, okay, let's go see if it is. And, I don't think it cheapens anything, and this episode does a really good job in making Bertrand's death feel important. So after they find him, they take him back to Esteros. He lets them stay the night there. He disarms a few traps in the room above his study. Eventually, they meet up with Letters and Ashton. They go looking for more info on the dwarf. They go back to where they fought him. They don't find much information on him, but they find the small crawl space again, where the Shea Creepers would have been hiding. Was it Shea Creepers or Shea Stalkers? Because I thought it was Creepers in episode 3, and then I swore I heard Stalkers in episode 4 once or twice. So maybe someone could, in the comments, clarify. That is probably where the Shea Creepers came from, this very deep tunnel, very small tunnel. No way this dwarf would have fit in this tunnel. They start looking for more information on the dwarf at other taverns. Eventually, Dorian and Imogen are able to get a bit of information out of a tiefling. The dwarf's name is Duggar. I don't want to say Digger, because I've been saying Digger for a couple days. I've been saying Digger for a couple hours today when I've been thinking about this video. Don't want to mess it up. And I've already messed it up. He used to be a carpenter, and then he seemingly joined the, and I'm gonna mess up this word, Hutbat Corsairs. Was that how Matt said it? Matt, why you gotta name things like this? Anyway, uh, they take that information back to Esteros, where he says that group, the Hutbat Corsairs, I'm saying it wrong, but this is how I'm gonna have to say it until I figure it out, are normally a Robin Hood type of group. They steal from the rich and give back to the poor, and what Duggar's actions are don't seem to line up. So maybe he's not working with them, but he used to be. And they also learned that he seems to be decaying slowly via, I don't know if it was brimstone that's doing it, or if they determined it was some other drug. But then eventually, they start looking into this Hutbass Corsairs, because Esteros was like, I'm going to work with them at some point, or he wanted to, but they never answered him. So they want to look into it now. Ashton has a friend that they go to where Ashton lives. They learn about they learn about someone who might have information in an underground market area. Ashton takes them there. They meet the Shadow Baker. And after a couple of poor conversation tactics and poor rolls, they end up getting led to a man named Heron, who I believe was there was two in there. I think there was a human and there was I forget what Matt called it, but it's a bird person. And I think he said it had a different name than what the normal game does. So if you could, answer that in the comments too, I'm sure someone will. But eventually, Heron takes them up to a trap or some sort of fight pit. I wasn't quite sure if they were there to, be ambushed or if they were there to, earn the information. I think it was more of an ambush style thing because Matt eventually said this is what happens when you have bad rolls. So, that's basically where the episode ended. And now I'm going to give more of, my thoughts on it. Because, like I said, not a whole lot happened. We learned a little bit about, a little bit more about Esteros and, his need to stay protected, obviously, with his house being super trapped up. Because eventually they went up to that room and it was heavily trapped and more than what he just disarmed. So we got a little bit more on him and his feelings toward what he's doing, and he seems to be wanting to do more on the side of good. He doesn't believe they're doing enough. That's something he said once, and that stuck with me. He doesn't believe he's doing enough to end this sort of corruption. Also with Orym, we learned he's after someone whose name I missed. They called him the bodyguard, I believe, and I missed the name. So, poor on me to miss such a name. I think he said something like Bassos, maybe. Please write that in the comments, what that guy's name was. So, Orym's looking for that person. I would assume Fern and Dorian are as well. And Dorian's still around, which... this is episode 4. He stayed around a lot longer than I expected as a guest character. So maybe he's going to stick around for even longer. Who knows? So then, the big thing was, to me, how Matt let Bertrand's death sit. Everyone had instances where they got to, see him and react to it. And everyone had their own reactions to it, obviously. Laudna doesn't really care because she's dead. She's just like, oh, whatever, he's dead. Imogen, I really felt that Imogen and Bertrand Bell were growing some sort of father-daughter relationship a little bit. Just slightly. They only knew each other for a handful of days. But I thought there was a connection beginning there. So then, Fern didn't have a big connection to him either. She literally says that, yeah, you were there. Ashton and him had a very headbutt relationship, which, I find people who butt heads a lot when they get separated or when someone, leaves, they kind of feel it the most, like in D&D games. And I don't know if that's going to affect him, because he said I should have bought the sandwich. He said that a couple of times. And I don't know if that was necessarily just in reference to Bertrand dying, or if it was, you know, because out of guilt, he's like, I feel bad now. But then also they were all like sharing the sandwich and didn't feel like they had enough. So he could have been like, I felt that was a bit of a cover for Ashton to not look like he felt bad about Bertrand. And then FCG had his weird little moment with him as well, saying that the hardest word isn't goodbye, it's Worcestershire, which I probably butchered that word too. So each character had their little interesting moment. Dorian feels terrible because he was the last one with Bertrand before he went off by himself, and he shouldn't have let him done it. And it's fairly interesting to me how everyone seems to have reacted to this. Yeah. Orem, I feel like Orem was very neutral about it. Just kind of like Ludna, but in a different way. Like Ludna was, sorry, Laudna, not Ludna. Gotta remember, Laudna. Very, very different neutral, ways of looking at it. Orem looked at it like, we barely knew him, kind of like Fern. But Laudna looked at it like, whatever. He was there. And like it's natural. Like I felt like Laudna looked at it like very much like a circle of life, whereas the other guys were looked at it like it's kind of whatever. So, everyone was different. I'm excited to see where Travis's new character comes in. I think this opens up for a bunch of possibilities. One, I think he will be interfering in whatever fight they're in the ambush. I also think he might step in just after, but knowing Travis and him liking combat a lot, he'll probably want to step in before, which is another reason why I thought, they didn't have a combat in this session, because I think Matt wanted them to get to that spot sooner so Travis could show up, because Travis was there. He was there at the beginning and then he left. So I think Travis wanted to be introduced during combat again, and Matt had that combat encounter set up, and they never got to it. And, I think it sucks for someone like Travis if they do a combat that doesn't relate to his character, his new one. So it's probably a good move to not have one at all and have a slower, more intel gathering episode. Sorry, 1 second here. I've been losing my voice the last couple of days. So, he probably didn't have a combat, so Travis didn't feel insanely left out, because he was already in 0 seconds of the actual session, which is nuts. But his character had the biggest impact on it, obviously. So, yeah. And I feel like the session itself was shorter than the other sessions. I feel like they got a good 4 hours out of the last 2 or last 3, and this one didn't feel as long. Something about it felt like it was slower because there wasn't any action, and we were getting drip fed information about Duggar. Oh, and I want to talk about the Shadow Baker a little bit, because pies are a pastry. But Liam, you're wrong. Cakes are better than pies. I guess that's all I have to say about the Shadow Baker. Actually, no, there's something else. Esteros is also a baker. Are the two of them connected somehow? I think that could be an interesting little thing. Maybe they used to be a part of the group that Esteros was a part of, and now they're a bunch of old bakers doing their own thing. Yeah, honestly, that's probably all I have to say. This episode was slow, but I like it. I like taking a step back after a character dies, allowing it to breathe, allowing them to gather information on their enemy, figure out things. They learned a bunch of new world building stuff, about this Hunbat Corsairs group. I'm saying that wrong. It's not Hunbat, it's something else. But it's Hubatt, I believe, so apologies if I have it pronounced wrong, but I think I have it spelled right. There was one more thing. Right. Something about this city I don't get. this is actually going to be a complaint. I feel like I don't have a general layout of this city. I feel like this city is. It just feels like they go from one place to another without letting the layout sink in. I don't feel like I think I need like an image, some sort of map, or some sort of drawing of this city before I like fully understand what they're doing. Because it feels like they keep saying they go from one spire to another to another to another inside a spire at one point, and I was like, what does this place look like? I don't have this general idea of what this place looks like, and that's probably my fault. I probably missed something somewhere, which I would love it if someone in the comments said something about it, but I genuinely just don't have a grasp on this city, and I thought I did in the first episode when Matt was describing it a bit, but I've seemed to have lost it, if that makes sense. I seem to not understand how far things are from each other, or, like, tell me if you think that this layout seems odd. Like, it doesn't seem laid out. I mean, not every city had a good layout, like, set to us beforehand, but I felt like Zadash from Campaign 2 was really well laid out. They told us where the Nestled Nook was, where I'm forgetting his name, the gentleman was, where the rich quarters were, where the castle was, all that stuff. They kind of told us where a bunch of stuff was, and I got like a general layout from it. And that might be because of Caleb and his feat, but at the same time, I just don't have a general sense of this city. So, hopefully, that clears up in the next session for me. I don't know. Probably will, eventually. I might have to go back and listen to some descriptions from Matt. But, that's my only complaint. I like the slow gathering intel session. I like the fact that they let Bertrand's death, breathe a bit. And, overall, I like what all the characters did and how they reacted. They all reacted in a reasonable way, in my opinion, to this character who they didn't really have much of a connection with, outside of Imogen. Imogen, I feel like she's in a bit of denial about her feelings toward his death, because this is the first time she said this. This is the first time she's got somebody else inside the storm during her dream, and I feel like before that, when they were, gathering intel, there was some sort of bond being created, and now it's gone, which I also think is a good thing to bring up. This has created a very powerful tool for DMs. A tool of using your other players to enforce or reinforce a idea or what you want them to do, I guess. You could almost look at it like railroading them, like, because now they feel like they have to go after Duggar, or Digger. No, it was Duggar. They have to go after Duggar because they killed their friend. And that was all set up by Travis and Matt. And I think that this is a very, very good tool for DMs to have now. If you feel confident in one of your players being experienced enough to be able to do this, that's powerful. That is a great thing to have. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say. The only complaint, obviously, was I don't understand the city layout. Everything else was great. I liked even the idea of this underground market. I thought that was excellent. And we're starting to learn, like Ashton isn't very trusting. And he immediately, last session, went, I want to learn more about him. I want to learn more about him. And now he seems to be, after this death of Bertrand Bell, I feel like he trusts everyone around him a little bit more. I got that general sense from him, that he was leading a bit of the charge. So I felt like it affected him. Like I said, the characters who butt heads typically get affected most, I think. And I think it showed with him leading the way into gathering information. So, that's all I have to say about the episode. I thought it was a great episode. Yeah, that's it. Thought it was a great episode. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode down below. And you guys, if you're still here, you're killing it with the views. The why does everyone hate EXU video is just gone insane. It's at like 32 K right now, which is just silly, and I can't express how much that means to me. You guys have done, it's a great confidence boost to see something like that, something you've created get seen. And I put out another video earlier this week, which didn't get seen all that much, but it didn't bother me like I thought it would. So it's only sitting at like 70 views right now, which I don't care. If you don't feel like watching it, because it's not Critical Role related, it's D&D. So if that's not your thing, if you don't want to look at that, that's fine. I just wanted to put it out and see what see what would happen. But yeah, you guys keep killing it every single time. 70 views is still great. It's better than what I was getting beforehand, before I did any sort of D&D Critical Role at all. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart. And this is, again, just the start. And I can't wait for this to continue. See you next time.